When little Aiden started school, he was bright and curious, always asking questions, always exploring. But something felt different. Words came slower and everyday sounds seemed a little too loud. His parents thought he just needed more time and maybe he'd catch up next year. What they didn't know was that deep inside his DNA, a tiny change was shaping the way his brain grew. That tiny change has a name, one discovered decades ago when scientists first noticed something fragile on the X chromosome. Years later, they found a gene behind it, a breakthrough that helped explain why some children develop and learn differently. In this video, we'll explore what Fragile X is, how it happens, and what it means for development and diagnosis. We'll also look at how awareness and future research can help shape better support for every child. Because behind the science are real families, and every story like Aiden's deserves to be heard.
So what exactly is Fragile X?
So Fragile X is a genetic disorder that affects brain development and its functions. This is caused by genetic mutations where the FMR1 gene is improperly expressed. Therefore, no FMRP proteins or less of them are made, and then this leads to poor synapse formation, and this affects the learning and memory of an individual. Okay, so as a result, people with Fragile X actually often experience intellectual disabilities. So they have learning challenges as well as social anxiety. People with Fragile X also often have characterized with defined facial features, such as big ears, long narrow face, and a prominent jaw. Although less heard of, Fragile X is actually one of the most common inherited intellectual disabilities, where 1 in 4,000 males are affected and 1 in 8,000 females are affected.
To understand the disease, we must first understand the role of FMR1 itself. Why is it so important in the first place? FMR1 proteins are necessary for proper neural synapse formation, where it regulates the production of hundreds of other proteins as an RNA-binding protein. In Fragile X syndrome, FMR1 proteins are not expressed, therefore these proteins' expression levels become unregulated and lead to the malformation of the neural network. Typically, this shows poor neuron maturation, synapse pruning, and also hyperexcitability. Within the FMR1 gene, there is a region of DNA in the 5-NUTR that encodes CGG repeats. Normally, the human FMR1 gene carries around 4 to 44 repeats of CGG. When CGG repeats increase, the repetition becomes a signal for DNA methylation and other epigenetic regulation mechanisms, which reduces the amount of FMR1 synthesized. When the amount of repeats are 45 to 54, the person carries a higher risk of inheriting individuals with Fragile X syndrome, and this is called an intermediate. From 55 to 200 repeats, it is called a premutation, which may cause FXTAS, or also known as Fragile X tremor ataxia syndrome, and FXPOY, or also known as Fragile X primary ovarian insufficiency. Above 200 repeats, it is considered a full mutation, which means the person carries the Fragile X syndrome. As the name suggests, Fragile X syndrome is inherited through the X chromosome. This leads to a unique phenomenon where males are more susceptible to inherit the condition. This is due to the fact that males only carry one copy of the X chromosome, so if one allele has Fragile X syndrome in females, the FMR1 protein can still be synthesized through the unaffected X chromosome, but males do not have the extra unaffected chromosome.
Fragile X syndrome doesn't just affect one part of the body, it influences how a person grows, learns, or connects with the world. Its effects can be seen across development, behavior, or even physical appearance. Cognitively, most individuals experience mild to moderate intellectual disability. They may find it harder to concentrate, process information, or remember new things. But with the right support, many can learn and adapt remarkably well. Behaviorally, Fragile X can look different for everyone. Some may be shy or anxious in social situations. Others might show repetitive behaviors, sensitivity to sound, or challenges in maintaining eye contact. These behaviors are not signs of unwillingness, but reflections of how their brain experiences the world. Physically, there are subtle signs that doctors may look for. such as a longer face, larger ears, or flexible joints. In boys, these features may become more noticeable after puberty. Early diagnosis is key. It allows children to start intervention sooner. Speech therapy, special education, and family support that can dramatically improve their long-term outcomes. The earlier we recognize these signs, the greater the opportunity for growth. Fragile X may be a lifelong condition, but understanding it helps us respond with care and science, building a bridge between genetics and human compassion.
Research is now uncovering ways to switch the FMR1 gene back on, which is the gene that turns off in Fragile X. Some labs are testing the gene therapy using a tiny molecular tools to reactivate that gene, allowing the brain to make the missing protein again. Others are exploring targeted drugs that could help the brain's connection to work better, improve learning and communication. Every new study brings scientists a step closer to treatments that don't just manage the symptoms but address the cause itself. But while science moves forward, parents don't have to wait to make a difference. Early therapy, speech, occupational, and behaviorals are the things that help children build skills from the start. Routine, patience, and encouragement make a world of differences in their daily life. Science is giving us hope for tomorrow, but compassion, awareness, and love, that's what help families thrive today.